Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a little while since I've done an AX8 video, but here we are. I want to follow up from a video I did where I did a comparison clip between a JDM45 and the fractal model and lied to everybody and actually just used the AX8 for both clips. I'm going to show you how I made the models a little more amp-like. This is basically just going to be my guide to how I like to tweak the amp models so they sound even better than they already do. Here is the 50 watt 6550 Plexi. I've got it together with some IRs I shot of my greenback loaded 412 cab, and I've just done a little bit of post EQ, namely rolling off the low end and the high end and adding a bit of 2 and 3K, and also pulled out a little bit of 250. That's just to help refine the sound of the IR. Anyway, let's have a listen to what the amp sounds like. Haven't touched any of the advanced settings. This is, as it looks, with a PRS McCarty. Now, I don't know about you, but I really like the way that sounds already. However, I think what I learnt by doing that series of videos is that most people seem to think that a real amp, as opposed to these modeled sounds, there seems to be this low end and low mid reinforcement going on, as well as the interplay between a real speaker and the transformer section, the output section I should say, of a real amp. And we can tweak all those controls here in the AX8. I'm going to start very quickly by going to the power supply section. And what I'm going to do is increase the supply sag. Let's have a listen to what that does to the sound. This is going to make everything a little bit more compressed, a little bit squishier, and it feels different to play. Here's the default setting at 4, and then I'll crank it up to 7. So that's probably one of the most obvious ones to play around with, because as you know, the more you turn a real vintage amp up, the more it all starts to sag and get ugly sounding. But that ugliness is kind of what we like about Plexis and Marshalls and stuff like that. All the ghost notes and all the funky stuff. Moving on, we'll go to the speaker section, and talking about that interplay between the output transformer and the speaker, you can model with the transformer match control. I'm going to increase this a little bit, and we'll have a listen to what it does to the overall tone. I like it at about 1.2. You can hear it just adds this kind of grindy kind of sound, which I think is pretty cool. It sounds like your amp's about to die. I dig it. Moving on, my favorite section to get into is the speaker drive section, and adding a little bit of speaker drive is going to go a long way to getting that sound of a fully cranked Plexi happening. I only turn it up to about 1, but I'll show you what it sounds like at extreme values. And speaker drive's friend is motor drive. This is my favorite advanced control. It adds this wicked compression, and to me this should be called the realness control, because the more motor drive you add, the more believable the amp model starts to sound, to my ears anyway. Here it is at 0. The only thing you have to do with motor drive is compensate with the level a little bit. Let's have a listen to it now. Oh, that sounds so good. The other thing I like to tweak is the dynamic section, which basically means is dynamic presence and dynamic depth control, which as you hit harder, you will get more of the presence control and you get more of the depth control. So here's the dynamic presence. to me really goes a long way to contributing to the dynamics. Obviously, that's what it's called. But if you've ever played a really loud 100-watt Marshall or something like that, or even a 15 or 20-watt Fender or Vox, you notice that when you start to play really hard with those kind of amps, there's this bloom with the low-end transients, and the kind of high-end starts getting really compressed. And that's a large reason why we love the way those amps sound. But you can cop a little bit more of that, and you can actually fine-tune it to your liking by using these dynamic controls. Okay, the last thing I want to have a play around with is the negative feedback control. And basically, increasing this is going to reinforce the low end and the low mids. So, like I was saying before, having a real amp kind of sound, it seemed to be like most people who went, hey, I think this clip is a real amp, they liked the clip that had more low end and more low mid. So let's have a listen to what happens when I crank the negative feedback. Well, not crank it, but increase. About 2 seems right. So that seems to fill things out a little bit. And because I've been adding a lot of low end and a lot of low mids, I'm going to pull out a little bit of 250. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like using the graphic EQ. And what that does is it just carves out a little bit of space specifically in that 250 Hertz frequency for your guitar to sit in the band a little bit more. I know it sounds like a contradiction saying I wanted to add a lot of low end and a lot of low mids, but I've done it in a very general way with the transformer match and the sag control and the other advanced controls, and this is going to target that 250 Hertz region that I don't want to blow out. So there we go, that's what I did in those videos in order to make an already good sounding amp model sound even more believable and realistic. And to me, what all of this does is it just makes it sound, crappier. Sounds like the amp is going to fail or something like that. So rather than have like an idealized snapshot of what an amp should do, this gives you like a working, grimy, real world version of the amp. And I think it sounds great. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, check out my other stuff and subscribe to my channel.